Hey everybody, Matt Smith back here with you. Another SEC preview video today, and we are talking about the sad state of affairs about 3 miles from where I'm sitting over on West End Avenue here in Nashville. That, of course, being the Vanderbilt Commodores. They didn't win a game last year. They went 0-9 in the All-SEC schedule, fired Derek Mason after 7 seasons, and they hired Clark Lee, the defensive coordinator from Notre Dame, a Vanderbilt alum, young guy who hopes to turn things around for a program that had some success in the first part of the last decade under James Franklin. But now time will tell if that was just Franklin capitalizing on Tennessee being bad, on Florida being bad, on Ole Miss being bad, some of Vanderbilt's annual opponents, when he went 8-4 and 8-4 2 years in a row and got the Commodores to bowls both years, and I think ended both seasons in the top 25. So that's a long way off. We're just talking about getting Vanderbilt to back to 4-8, 5-7 levels. But even that seems like a bit of a pipe dream for the next couple years, given what we saw on the field, at least from the Commodores last year. So Clark Lee, young guy, not even 40 yet, I don't believe, was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame the past 3 seasons. The Irish made the college football playoff in 2 of those 3 years. So really did a heck of a job there with the Irish, coming back home to Nashville. And I think with him, the difference that I think Commodore fans can point to between him and Mason is that Lee will understand that all his decisions can fit kind of within that purview of what Vanderbilt is and what they aren't. There are some good things, of course. Nashville is the best city in the SEC, one of the growing cities in the country, easy to attract young people to. Academics are, of course, the best in the league, a top 20 university. And then there's all the downsides. The academics come with a price, of course. You can't recruit everybody you want to recruit because there are some with academic limitations that just aren't going to make it and aren't recruitable. Facilities are terrible. The stadium is probably the worst in the SEC, well, definitely the worst in the SEC, and probably the worst in the Power 5 as well. They have some campaigns going on to raise some money to do some renovating there, but still, it's a pretty sad state of affairs for a stadium that hasn't been renovated in about 40 years there for the Commodores. Support from the administration has been pretty minimal in recent years. We've seen a little bit over the past year where they're making some more commitments to athletics, but still nowhere near what you're seeing from the state schools in the SEC. So just a long road to hoe, but Lee understands that. He knows the school, he knows the city. I think he gets Vanderbilt more than Mason ever did in 7 years. So the decisions he makes will be assessing how can we maximize the assets we have and how can we limit the downside of what Vanderbilt is and compared to some of their other peers within the SEC. So that's kind of the high-level view of where this program is. As far as the 2021 season, Lee was, of course, a defensive guy, ran a lot of 4-2-5 stuff at Notre Dame. Derek Mason was a 3-4 guy, so the formation will probably look a bit different this year. A theme throughout the league was going to the NFL for coordinator hires, and Lee was no different. Went out to the Arizona Cardinals, brought in David Ray, was a position coach there. He'll be the offensive coordinator, gets a returning quarterback in Ken Seals, who had a pretty good true freshman last season by all accounts, given all the crazy circumstances, not having a lot of talent to work with. Completed about 65% of his passes, which is pretty good. A few too many turnovers, but true freshman playing in the SEC, again with Vanderbilt. Not too worried about that, but if they can mesh and be a pretty good pairing, I think there is a future for Seals in this league to at least be kind of a mid-tier quarterback by his junior and senior years coming up in the next couple of years. The running game, they have 2 new guys come in, or 1 new guy, and then the backup from last year will probably take over as the starter. Javion Marlowe's the guy back, had about 200 yards last year as the number 2 guy. Didn't see a lot from him. Raymond Davis is a transfer in from Temple. I think he had over 1,000 yards in his career there with the Owls. So it'll be kind of those 2 guys in the backfield. Limited, of course, but we'll see if they can put something together. Receiving core actually has some potential there. Cam Johnson's kind of their possession receiver. Amir Abdur-Rahman's going to be a bit of a deeper threat. And tight end, Lee knows tight ends very well. He had a lot of good ones at Notre Dame. And Ben Bresnahan's probably going to be their number 1 guy this year. So the receiving core may be the best unit on the team, actually. But are they good enough to take advantage of that? Offensive line, nothing in the running game last year. Again, they hardly could get anything going. Pass protection was decent. So really nowhere to go but up for that unit. It's a veteran group. Played a good bit of football over the past couple of years, but just not a lot of proven production. So it's that classic kind of catch-22 of do you like having the experience or do you want some other guys that might have more upside? We'll see. Defensively, again, that's a 4-2-5 from Lee. I don't expect a ton of pressure. I think they'll kind of just sit back and not want to overcomplicate things in year 1. Anthony Orji is probably the name to know in the front 7 there as the middle linebacker, inside linebacker. Probably the best player in that front seven there. The secondary, a complete disaster last year. So most of those guys are back, so they have a good bit of experience there, but 2 interceptions in 9 games, that's ridiculous. Allowed 73% of opponents' passes to be completed, also ridiculous. I got some numbers written down here. Thank you, Phil Steele. Some opponent passing stats from last year. Missouri, 34 for 41. Kentucky, 16 for 20. Ole Miss, 32 for 37. Mississippi State, 35 for 46. That's crazy efficiency from opposing offenses. This secondary has a ways to go. Again, expect a lot of nickel and dime from this Vanderbilt defense. But what a miserable unit. Probably the worst of any position group in the SEC last year was the Vanderbilt secondary. So, turning to the schedule, not too bad in terms of crossover games. Ole Miss, of course, on there. That game's in Oxford. Mississippi State is coming to Nashville for their first trip here since, I believe, 2009. So not a bad draw there. The East, of course, is kind of down this year. South Carolina and Tennessee also kind of starting over with new coaches like Vanderbilt. Unfortunately for the Commodores, those are probably the 2 games they can point to as maybe we can steal a win there. But both games do come on the road. They got to go to Columbia and Knoxville. In the non-conference, they got a nerd bowl with Stanford in week 3. That'll be here in Nashville. And they got a strange trip out to Colorado State in the mountains of Fort Collins. And that's already been announced as, I believe, a 10 p.m. Eastern kickoff, so 9 o'clock Central. Definitely a body clock game there. So not ideal circumstances, but a winnable game there against a Rams team that wasn't very good in their short season last year, the first under new head coach Steve Addazio. So I'm going to go 2-10. I think that's probably the consensus among most pundits at this time. Good opener with East Tennessee State. They should win that one. They also get UConn, who did not play last year. Should win that. And then again, the Colorado State game. You got a chance to win that, but given the circumstances, the altitude game, the late kickoff, I don't feel comfortable calling for a win there. Lost to Stanford, probably in the non-con. Not a super talented Cardinal team like we saw back in the middle part of last decade, but I don't think their Commodores are even close to really say they could pull an upset there. And again, in the SEC, South Carolina, Tennessee might be winnable games, but both are on the road, so I can't call for one. So I'm going 2-10, 0-8. If you get to 3 wins, whether it comes by winning at Colorado State or stealing one of those SEC games, I think that would be a huge win for Lee in his first year. Recruiting is going pretty well by Vanderbilt standards, so again, this is a long road ahead. You're probably looking towards 2023 at least until you're talking about a bowl game potentially. But he's invested, he's all in, he knows this program, and for now, you got to put some faith in him if you're a Vanderbilt fan and hope this thing can get turned around after bottoming out last year. So that's the Vanderbilt Commodores for you. Let me know below any thoughts you have on this team as they hope to at least find a win at some point this year after not having one now since I believe October of 2019 was their last win. So thanks for watching. Reach out to me on Twitter, of course, at MattSmithCFB. Written preview is up at southernpigskin.com. I will talk to y'all soon.